Welcome to Beneath the Surface, the dark side of crime. If you're new here, I'm so glad you found us. This is the place where we dive deep into the most shocking and twisted stories, where things aren't always what they seem, and where the truth can sometimes be far darker than fiction. Every week, we bring you true crime stories filled with suspense, shocking twists, and deep dives into the psychological intricacies of the people involved. If you're passionate about real-life mysteries and the stories that haunt us all, you're in the right place. Before we jump into today's case, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoy what you see today, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts and keep the conversation going. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's take a journey together into today's dark tale. With over 2 million followers on Instagram, millions of dollars earned from OnlyFans, and a life filled with luxury and glamour, Courtney Clenney was living the dream. At 26 years old, she was at the peak of her career, a successful influencer and model, captivating the world with her beauty, charm, and confident persona. But behind the bright lights and perfect social media posts, there was something far darker, simmering beneath the surface. On April 3, 2022, a single fatal moment would shatter everything. In what was either a tragic accident or a violent outburst, her boyfriend, Toby Obumseli, was left dead, and Courtney's carefully curated empire came crashing down. As the investigation unfolded, secrets were revealed, and Courtney's carefully constructed image started to unravel. What was going on behind closed doors in their relationship? Was this a case of self-defense, as Courtney claims? Or was it something far more sinister? The public and police would soon learn that things were not as they seemed. Courtney's life, once filled with the allure of fame and fortune, was now under a magnifying glass, scrutinized for every detail. This case has garnered attention, not only because of the tragic end to Toby's life, but also because of the questions it raises about the dynamics of abusive relationships, the impact of privilege, and how appearances can often mask the darkest realities. Today we're diving deep into the story of Courtney Clenney and Obumseli, a story of love, control, violence, and the unraveling of what seemed like a perfect life. Was Courtney a victim, or was she the perpetrator of a tragic crime? Let's take a closer look at the events leading up to that fateful day. Welcome to today's case. Grab a seat, and let's get into it. Chapter 1. A glamorous life on the outside, Courtney Clenney's rise to fame seemed almost scripted, an influencer's dream come true. The world was her oyster, or so it seemed. By 2022, with over 2 million Instagram followers, countless endorsements, and millions of dollars from her OnlyFans account, she had built an empire from her online presence. Her social media feed showcased picture-perfect moments, luxury vacations, designer clothes, and of course, her flawlessly curated images. Courtney, the so-called blonde bombshell, lived the life many aspired to. But behind her social media success, there was a darker undercurrent. The reality was that Courtney, much like many influencers, was meticulously crafting a persona that was far from the truth. Beneath the glitzy photos, there was a woman trying to fill the void of insecurity, battling personal demons that she refused to face. Her online persona was polished, but her real-life actions told a very different story. Chapter 2. Early life and the struggles. Behind the spotlight, Courtney's upbringing in Texas painted a picture of privilege. Born on April 21, 1996, to Deborah and Kim, a financial advisor, her family had the means to provide her and her sister, Morgan, with everything they could wish for. The Clenney family was active, encouraging their daughters to participate in a variety of activities, from gymnastics to volleyball. The family's affluence allowed Courtney to excel in her passions, but there was always a sense of wanting more. She was constantly striving for external validation, whether it was through her athletic achievements, her academic success, or later, her appearance. In high school, Courtney had a difficult time navigating the emotional turbulence of adolescence. Despite excelling in sports and becoming involved in various extracurricular activities, there was a growing sense of loneliness and insecurity. She began to focus more on her appearance, gradually becoming more conscious of how others perceived her. Her body, once something she took for granted, became a source of both pride and pressure. The more she trained, the more attention she received, and soon she was addicted to the validation from her online presence. Chapter 3. Social media fame and the rise to popularity. Courtney's social media journey began with a few innocent gym photos, which quickly gained traction on Instagram. What started as a hobby slowly transformed into a full-time gig. With each post, her following grew, and brands began reaching out for collaborations. As her body became more sculpted, she became a fitness inspiration to many. But it wasn't just fitness that kept her followers engaged. It was her allure, her carefully cultivated persona of being confident and carefree. By 2016, Courtney stumbled upon the perfect opportunity: OnlyFans. The platform allowed creators to connect with fans through paid subscriptions, giving them access to exclusive content. Courtney, already building a following, saw this as her golden ticket. She had no qualms about showing more of herself, and with her body and her confidence, she quickly found success. By 2020, she was making millions. But while her bank account swelled, so did the pressure. Courtney wasn't just a fitness model anymore. She was a brand. And as with any brand, the need to maintain that image became all-consuming. The demand for new content never stopped, and she was now facing the harsh reality that in order to maintain her success, she would have to give more of herself, perhaps more than she was willing to give. Chapter 4. Meeting Christian Toby. Obumseli in 2020, just as Courtney's career was skyrocketing, she met Christian Toby Obumseli. Toby was a breath of fresh air. He was grounded, ambitious, and had a heart full of kindness. A Texas native like Courtney, Toby had already carved out his own path in the world of cryptocurrency and stocks. His warm personality was infectious, and he was known for his integrity and work ethic. When the two met, sparks flew. Courtney, who had long struggled with feelings of emptiness despite her outward success, saw in Toby the emotional connection she had been yearning for. Toby, too, felt a deep connection to Courtney, and they quickly became inseparable. But what seemed like a fairy tale romance was actually the beginning of a complicated and ultimately tragic relationship. At first, everything seemed perfect. They traveled together, partied together, and lived the high life. But it wasn't long before the cracks began to show. Toby, for all his charm and affection, was dealing with a tumultuous relationship with Courtney that would soon change the course of his life forever. Chapter 5. A troubled relationship begins. As their relationship progressed, the signs of toxicity began to emerge. Courtney's behavior started to change. She became possessive and controlling, constantly demanding Toby's attention. Toby, a calm and patient man, was more than willing to meet her needs, but as time went on, he began to show signs of emotional exhaustion. Courtney's insecurities, which had always simmered beneath the surface, began to bubble up. She became fixated on controlling Toby, even to the point of tracking his every move. The once carefree man, who had enjoyed a wide circle of friends, became more withdrawn. Courtney would yell at him over minor issues, and physical violence soon entered the picture. What began as her slapping him on the chest escalated into violent outbursts that left Toby emotionally scarred. Despite the abusive nature of their relationship, Toby remained committed. He defended her in front of others, always explaining away her outbursts as misunderstandings or moments of stress. But deep down, Toby was a broken man. He loved Courtney, but he didn't know how to escape the downward spiral of their relationship. Chapter 6. The Escalation of Abuse. By 2021, Courtney's behavior had escalated to alarming levels. Alcohol became a constant presence in her life, and with it, the violence. On one occasion in Las Vegas, she threw a glass at Toby's head, causing injury. The police were called, but despite the severity of the situation, Toby refused to press charges. He didn't want to add to the chaos in their lives. Instead, they carried on, each argument becoming more intense, each apology more empty than the last. Courtney's erratic behavior was well documented. She had 2 DUI charges, one of which involved her throwing objects at Toby. But each time, she would apologize profusely, showering him with expensive gifts in an attempt to make amends. Toby, despite everything, continued to believe in the good in her. But the truth was that Courtney had long since abandoned any notion of a healthy relationship. She was lost in her own world of self-doubt, fear, and anger. Chapter 7. The Move to Miami. By January 2022, the couple made the decision to leave Texas behind and move to Miami. For Courtney, it was the perfect escape, both from the toxic environment they had created and from the constant attention her actions had attracted. Miami, with its glitzy nightlife, pristine beaches, and expensive lifestyle, offered the allure of a fresh start. But it wasn't a fresh start. It was a continuation of the same cycle. Courtney's behavior became more erratic. She thrived on attention and adoration, but she had no idea how to deal with the void that success had created. She would go out to bars, clubs, and parties, leaving Toby behind, her actions growing more erratic as her substance abuse deepened. She was unraveling, but she refused to face it. Toby, meanwhile, was growing more isolated. The man who had once been full of ambition and energy now seemed lost. He tried to protect Courtney, but her outbursts were now a regular occurrence. He was trapped in a relationship he couldn't escape, emotionally tethered to a woman who only seemed to bring him pain. Chapter 8. The Final Days. By late March 2022, things were unraveling fast. The couple had been fighting non-stop for days. The apartment was a battleground. Courtney would scream at Toby, throw things, and tell him to leave. But when he tried to leave, she wouldn't let him. She had a hold on him that was suffocating. On March 31st, 2022, Courtney officially broke up with Toby, and for the next several days, he slept on a small sofa in the foyer of their apartment. Courtney, however, couldn't stand being apart from him. She had broken up with him, but she didn't want him to leave. The power dynamics in their relationship were now crystal clear. Courtney was controlling Toby's every move. Chapter 9. The tragic death on the evening of April 3rd, 2022. Things took a deadly turn. The couple argued once again. Courtney allegedly grabbed a knife and threw it at Toby after an argument about location sharing on their phones. Toby was stabbed in the chest. He was in pain, unable to feel his arm, and he feared for his life. Courtney, in a panic, called her mother and waited for 13 minutes before dialing 911. When paramedics arrived, they found Toby in a pool of blood, struggling to stay conscious. Despite their efforts, Toby passed away. Courtney, covered in blood, was detained by the authorities, her actions now the subject of intense scrutiny. Chapter 10. Investigation and Aftermath. The investigation into Toby's death quickly revealed the toxic nature of Courtney and Toby's relationship. Witnesses, text messages, and recordings painted a clear picture of emotional and physical abuse. Courtney's contradictory statements only added to the suspicion that something wasn't right. The evidence didn't line up with her claims of self-defense. The medical examiner's report concluded that the stab wound was consistent with an intentional attack, not an accidental throw. It became clear that Toby had been the victim of a violent and abusive relationship. The investigation was only beginning, and Courtney's role in his death would soon be put on trial. The tragic death of Christian Toby Obumseli is a heartbreakingly clear example of how toxic relationships can escalate, sometimes to fatal consequences. Toby was a young man with immense potential, a gentle soul whose love for Courtney, despite all her flaws, blinded him to the toxic dynamics at play. His tragic death leaves a void in the hearts of those who knew him, and it raises serious questions about the nature of abusive relationships and the psychology of the people involved. Courtney Clenney, once at the height of her career and fame, seemed to have it all. She had money, popularity, and the world at her feet. Yet she was also struggling with deeply ingrained issues of control, insecurity, and addiction. These personal battles, coupled with her toxic relationship with Toby, led to a fateful moment when her anger, jealousy, and inability to control her emotions led to a fatal outburst. Her actions in the aftermath, her contradictory statements, the attempts to downplay her role, and her lack of accountability have left many questioning whether she truly understood the consequences of her actions. It is not just a case of self-defense, as she would later claim, but a tragic and preventable loss of life that could have been avoided had there been intervention or a willingness to acknowledge the deep-rooted problems in the relationship. This case also shines a spotlight on the issue of privilege. For a time, Courtney was shielded from the full consequences of her actions, possibly due to her social status, wealth, and image. The rapid investigation and her brief stint in a psychiatric ward seemed to indicate a rush to clear her name, leaving her family, friends, and the public questioning whether justice was truly being served. Toby's family and friends, however, have not let this case rest. They are determined to ensure that his memory is honored, that his life is not reduced to the tragic end brought about by another's violent actions. They believe that Toby was a victim of an abusive relationship and a flawed system that failed to protect him. His death has prompted a wider conversation about the need for better recognition of domestic abuse, particularly in relationships that are not easily visible to the outside world. The emotional scars of a controlling, manipulative partner can often be more devastating than physical violence. And Toby's case reminds us of the importance of recognizing these signs before it's too late. As this case moves through the legal system, the evidence that has been gathered, the elevator footage, the text messages, the audio recordings, will be crucial in determining whether Courtney's actions were truly an act of self-defense or if they were something far more sinister. The medical examiner's report, which indicated that the fatal stab wound could not have been caused by a thrown knife, only complicates her defense. It's a case that has gripped many, not just because of the fame surrounding the individuals involved, but because it raises important questions about relationships, accountability, and the consequences of our actions. This story serves as a harsh reminder that no one, no matter how glamorous their life appears, is immune to the complexities of emotional trauma, abusive relationships, and the unraveling of seemingly perfect facades. Thank you for joining me as we explored the tragic and complex story of Courtney Clenney and Christian Obumseli. This case has left many unanswered questions and sparked a debate about privilege, domestic violence, and the psychological toll of toxic relationships. It is a reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and that even the most seemingly perfect lives can hide deep, unresolved issues. As we await the trial and the final verdict, the memory of Toby Obumseli lives on. His family and friends are still fighting for justice, and we should all be paying attention to this case, because in the end, it's not just about one woman's rise to fame, but about the devastating consequences of unchecked abuse and the importance of protecting those who are vulnerable in toxic relationships. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think this was a case of self-defense, or is it something more sinister? Was Courtney justified in her actions, or should she be held accountable for the death of Toby? Let me know in the comments below. If you haven't already, please make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the bell icon for notifications. I post true crime and strange cases weekly, and if you'd like to support the channel further, you can check out my Patreon for exclusive content and behind-the-scenes updates. Remember, stories like these are a reminder that we all need to be vigilant and support those who may be suffering behind closed doors. Relationships should be built on respect, trust, and communication. If you or someone you know is dealing with domestic violence, please reach out for help. There is always support available, and no one should ever feel trapped in a toxic relationship. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, look after each other.